Hello, I'm going to be making a variation of this cradle today, 18th century, early 18th century, and I'm just showing you a few of the others that I picked out and thought about making. But I did settle on this one, and it's not going to be an exact copy, but it's going to be close. And I'm going to give you a little history of the cradle as well, but right now I'm just going to start out with cutting out the front and the back board, and I'm using balsa wood. And cradles were a very important part of the colonial home. And a cradle would be used, of course, right off in the beginning for your newborn. And it was usually built so it was big enough to accommodate the child for at least 2 years. So this cradle will be rather large. Nowadays, we may have these cradles in our home, but they're usually smaller and they don't get used as long. But this was an important part of the colonial home. And there was an author during the early part of the 18th century, and his name was Lester Margone, and he described a pine and walnut cradle that had been made in Pennsylvania around 1740, 1750. And this is what he had to say. Its design is a consummate delight. What a joy it must have been to sit beside this cradle and rock the baby to sleep, sending the little one off to dreams. And it was a unique and attractive design, he went on to say. So the size of it, of course, that I just mentioned would be to hold an infant and then right up until around the baby's second year, maybe longer, maybe shorter, depending on how large the infant grew to be. But cradles showed up in early America right from the beginning. And of course, the abundance of wood we had here in this part of the world made it easier for them to construct these things. And they really valued the painted decoration on these baby cradles. So we're going to paint this one as well. And I'm going to try to mimic the design of that first one that I showed you. So I'm just cutting around and doing the front and the back. This is the back board. Would be the footboard, actually. And the front would be the headboard. This is the headboard. I'm sorry. I got them mixed up. This is the taller piece. And the cradles came in various heights. This is going to be a taller one, so that sitting in a chair would be, I imagine, quite a bit easier. And of course, you'd be sitting and maybe knitting or doing something else and maybe pushing the cradle with your foot or reading. And it was a time, a special time for the mother and the child. And so we're going to try to make this a special cradle as a result. I was really interested in seeing the variations on these wooden cradles. There's so many out there, and they're quite costly now if you try to buy an original. And some of them, of course, have been stripped and repainted. There aren't very many that have the original painted designs. And the one that I'm making is actually from New England. It's not Pennsylvania Dutch or Pennsylvania. I know there's some people who may have an issue with calling it Pennsylvania Dutch, but that's how we've come to know it, that area and that style. So pardon me if I use that expression. And I'm just cutting around. There's a little bit of a design around the edge here. And this also would protect the child from drafts a little bit. It's kind of like having a wing chair. There were swinging rockers as well, and generally replaced the 17th century rockers going into the 18th century. And those would be mounted on, of course, the wooden curves. But they would also have other attachments to them, which this one won't have. But the basic design remained popular well into the 19th century, so you'll see a lot of 19th century rockers that look very similar. So it is kind of hard to date these because some of them uh, remained quite a bit the same as the late 17th century, right in through the 18th century. And of course, they would be passed down too from the mothers down to the other siblings. Sometimes the child's initials would be placed on the rocker, maybe a first child, or they would be repainted in for other children. Some of them were very elaborate with panels, raised panels that were carved, and others were covered with leather or velvet, or maybe armchair material. Ours is going to be wood, and of course the original would have been a hardwood. Oak was a very popular material to use for these, but mine is going to be made out of balsa wood, and a few other woods are included for the spindles because I'm using chair rail spindles for the decorative element, but you'll see that as I go along. I'm just cutting out some trim that's going to be placed on the side panels for this one. There were some cradles, though, too, that had a hooded. They had a hooded headboard, and that would also keep the child warmer as well. But this one doesn't have that. A lot of them didn't. And if you had a little girl, oftentimes the father might make a cradle that matched the one that the baby was in, and it would be used for a doll later on. That would be very special to be able to find something like that. And I think I'll probably make a really tiny cradle at some point for that old Pretender doll that I made earlier in this particular series. I'm just cutting out now the straight pieces that go along the edges that will hook to the rocker part itself. The construction is very simple, but it does take quite a bit of time to do this because the pieces, you end up having quite a few little fiddly pieces to put together. I'm just eyeballing it and measuring it while I look at the picture. And as they said, the baby cradle was really an essential piece of furniture in colonial American homes. They served both a practical and a symbolic role. And most of the earliest cradles date back to the mid-1600s. There's examples such as the Pilgrim cradle that was made between 1625 and 1675. And Mountain States Collector, there's a site called Mountain States Collector that you can look at that example of one of those early cradles. And again, often the frame would be made of oak, and they were a box-like structure with wooden handles. And sometimes they would be hung from rafters or mounted, on the rockers. This one's going to have rockers on it. But some of them had the capability of doing both, and you would see these wooden pegs on the side, which could be hung from the rafters. And this one doesn't have them, though. A couple of the first pictures I showed you did have those pegs on them, so they could be hung from rafters or maybe even hung outside on a tree if you were going to work outside and keep an eye on your baby. Many babies are swaddled very tightly to maintain it was thought to maintain proper posture. And they would also keep them a little safer so they couldn't just move around. So swaddling was something that was done to protect them from harm, and then the belief was that it would help their posture too. And I will have a little baby for this cradle, and it will be swaddled. And swaddling is kind of a mummy wrap for babies, I suppose you could say, to help the baby stay stable. There were pine rockers as well, and walnut was also used. That's another wood that was used quite a bit. Many times some member of the family would craft these if they had carpentry skills. And they would be dated, and of course, again, family initials might be put on, or if it was a first child, the initials of the first child would be put on, the outside painted somewhere. And I think cradles have never really gone out of fashion completely. I mean, there's something very endearing about them, and it's sort of written into our DNA to appreciate them. I'm just cutting out some spindle ends, and this will have a decorative element to it on the sides that will be put together on those sort of matchstick sizes that I cut out previously. And again, I'm just eyeballing it and trying to keep it all the same. I'm using a little micro saw here. It seems to work really well. It doesn't work really great on the harder woods unless you put it inside of one of those miter cutters. But these seem to be pretty soft, so it works out real well. And I'm just trying to keep all the little pieces together so I can see them. And I'm going to just continue to cut out the 4 top pieces, which will each have a ball on top of them, which will be a pin as the decorative element. And I save all these little scraps. I'll gather them up, and you just never know when they're going to come in handy. So I have a place where I put them and a couple of different size plastic bags so that I can reach for them and get them if I need them. I found that even some of the smallest pieces come in handy, so I don't throw them away. And this one's going to be painted. The whole outside will be painted, and then a design will be painted on the outside as well. And I'm just going to give a little sand here and there to make sure that the decorative part shows up. And I'm just using a diamond-coated rasp for that with a curve on it. Rounded. It's rounded on one side and flat on the other side. And this is just a round rasp to go in and make sure that the places where there's a curve, it will show up a little better. Another place you can look up some of these cradles is AmericanCenturies.org and the Mountain States Collector I've mentioned. You could look that up if you wanted to do a little research about them. And the National Museum of American History also has quite a bit. Wicker was another material that was used to make cradles. You would just weave the whole thing, sometimes out of willow and perhaps split wood that would be formed into a kind of large basket. So there were many different methods used, but the most popular were these wooden cradles that could be either used with rockers or hung from the rafters or both to rock the child and help it to fall asleep and remain amused at some point with the rocking motion, to bring a little bit of peace and contentment to the child and also to the mother or whoever was watching the baby at the time. These were very deeply personal objects, too. And they, like I said, would be passed down. So you'd see these rockers coming from the 17th century all the way into the 19th century and beyond, and being used and perhaps updated as they were used by different family members over the years. It would be interesting to hear from any of you who've had a cradle like this passed down to you, or if you own one. I would be interested in hearing what you know about it and if you've used it for your own children. And I know that a lot of doll collectors will make cradles for their dolls, and they were made for toys back to the 15th century and even earlier. There are examples actually stemming from the medieval period. And even the American natives here began to make cradles. In fact, there was some article that I read about a particular tribe that actually kind of specialized in making cradles and selling them to the people, the settlers here at the time into the 19th century. So one particular cradle that was mentioned in some of the readings that I did was that it had been passed down. The quote was, "Having been in constant use for the first 2 years of a child's life, this piece was surely treasured, durably designed and beautifully decorated with beading in green and blue and rose and gold. It sold for nearly $40,000 at auction." That's a lot of money for a cradle. But you could see there's some serious collectors out there who take this quite to heart. And it would be desirable to have one, I suppose, if you were wealthy enough to part with that amount of money. Now I'm just putting that one little sawed-off piece of spindle in again. These are the two that will go near the headboard. and I just glued it, and I put that pin head in, and now I'm going to drill some holes. I have a very fine drill. I bought this recently. It's a little easier on my hands because I have arthritis. I probably mentioned this before, and just trying to stick these pins through is hard on my hands as well. So I'm just going to drill right through, and the wood won't split either. So that's another nice thing about drilling, because the wood can split very easily. I'm just going to push it down right on the board there, and you can see it's still spinning. Push it all the way through, and there it is, and it didn't split. But for some reason, I couldn't get this one through easily. It kept getting caught on something it didn't want to go through, but eventually I did get it. Just had to push hard enough, and there it went. These are just regular glass head straight pins, and I'm just going to clip them off. And it will add some strength as well to have that little piece of metal all the way through. And again, I'll just add wood glue to hold it in place. And just push another one through. You do have to mark where you're going to put the drill though first. It makes it easier to push the drill in. If you don't do that, you end up kind of chewing up the wood all the way around. Yeah, that's what I just did. I just marked the hole, and then you can push it in. This one has a little light on it too, which is kind of nice. I bought this on Amazon. It's not the most expensive one. It doesn't hold a charge terribly long, but it holds it long enough to complete a project. And it's easily charged with a USB cord. Okay, I'm just going to put that in, and I'll glue it later just to make sure that that fits. So I'll try the other end and see if that fits a little better. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of little pieces here, but I am trying to imitate the rocker, at least to some degree. And I'm not doing a lot of carving. I'm doing more cutting this time. And those are the 4 pieces. And now I'm going to do the pieces that will actually hook to the rocker part. Just going to sand them down a little bit. Make sure there's no little pieces of scrap hanging out that'll interfere with the glue. And I'm going to drill a hole through these as well, so that I can connect the post to the bottom part that goes on the rocker. I put the drill speed up pretty high on these two to get through, but of course you have to adjust it to the type of wood you have and what you're going to be doing with the hole. And so it's at pretty high speed, not the highest, but almost the highest. And that will go right into the wood. And I'll glue that as well. And I'll cut that end piece off. And it'll fit on the side of the headboard on either side and also on the footboard. And I'll just glue that with wood glue. I will bend those legs out a bit as I go because it'll have to be straight so that it fits onto the rocker part. But you'll see as I go what that means. My goal for this log home is to make as many pieces as I possibly can that are authentic. Even if they're not an exact copy of the models that I use, they'll still have the feel of that time period. Infant mortality was something that was, of course, a big problem in earlier days. There were a lot of childhood illnesses that children simply didn't survive. And so people did have larger families. And although we see these statistics that people didn't live as long as we do, that's actually not true because they don't figure in for the infant mortality. Once a person got to be around 20 or 25 years old, between 20 and 25 years old, if they made it that far, they had just about as long a life as we do now, and in some cases even longer. But what they usually do in these type of statistics is they average in infant mortality. But even in my mother's and father's families, which were raised in the early part of the 20th century, childhood diseases were still taking many children. Scarlet fever, mumps, measles, and other diseases would rampage through communities. In my mother's family, my grandmother had 16 children in all, and only half of them lived to survive childhood. And my father's family was a little better. They had 12 children, and I think they lost 3 children. So it wasn't until we get into the 1930s and 40s and beyond that child mortality really began to be addressed in a significant way. I'm just pushing that through again on the other 2 pieces. And I had to pull that out because this piece of wood, I had something also stuck in there and I couldn't push the pin through easily. So I'm just going to push that through and that will be glued as well. I didn't show myself gluing these all in every instance. I went back and took them apart and glued them. Just pulled them a little bit and put some wood glue in with a paintbrush. I just wanted to show the construction because this is a rather long video. I'm going to choose another pin, one that's a little slimmer. A couple of the pins that made it into that box were not, they were quite heavy. And that one didn't fit either. You just keep trying. I didn't want to use a bigger drill because I want these to be tight. I didn't want them to be too loose. So I'm just going to push it slowly. I went ahead and cut that one. You didn't, it just wasn't going to go through, so it went through enough, and I'm going to glue it onto the rocker part anyway, so it worked out okay in the end. And then again, I have to bend them. One leg is bent already, and the other one has to be bent. Just a little bit. And then I'll adjust it again when I get to the gluing these onto the rocker, which I haven't cut out yet, but you'll see me cut those out. Those are the only two pieces of the cradle. Well, no, actually, there's other pieces that have to be cut out, but those are the two that I haven't cut out yet that are important. But there are 4 decorative pieces that go along the sides as well. So, and that's what I'm going to measure for here. And they're just going to be flat. And then I'll sand them on the ends to curve down to go flush with the wood. And these will be just strips. And these will be quite thin. I'll cut 4 of them out. I'm just using this mat to measure the squares on the mat to measure halfway on this. And then those will get, the 4 pieces will come out of this. You wouldn't have to put this on, but I'm trying to stay with the original. And the original had 2 of these bands on the sides, each side. They were painted a contrasting color. I will end up trimming that one on the top a little bit more and sanding it so that it actually is even and the same size as the rest. And this one will have one on the top and one along the bottom to make a sort of decorative division. And then there'll be some painting in between, some floral designs. I'm just going to glue those on after I sand them and even them out a little bit better. This little piece right here, there's going to be just a little piece on the top to finish it off. And that's a little 1/16 wooden dowel that I'll cut and put on. I'm just going to hand trim this piece to make sure that I get something that actually does fit that a little better than doing yeah, just to top it off on both sides, because that's what it had on the original, and it just finishes it off. Now I'm just going to finish gluing these. I didn't show it right off the bat. I wanted to just put them together first so you could see it. And now I'm just going to go through and glue them. Make sure the pins are stuck in where they ought to be. That one broke a little bit, but I'm just going to glue it right back in. It will get hard enough and it'll be able to be sanded, so instead of cutting a whole new piece. Okay. Now I'm going to glue these pieces on to the sides. Again, I'm just using wood glue. I may have to do a little bit of trimming afterwards, but that's all right. And now I'll put on the bottom pieces. good. And that'll be sanded and trimmed up a little bit after it dries. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can put those little trim pieces on the tops. Each side will have one of those on each end. Just give it a little bit more of a finished look too. And again, I'll sand the ends of these as well. And this will just have to dry, and that will be sanded. And now I'm going to try to put these together. I'm going to give them this nice quick sand on each end. Just make sure they're smooth. Actually, that's the wrong one. That goes on the footboard. They're a little shorter. Just using wood glue. You see how I bent the leg out on the bottom slightly? And that'll have to be adjusted again, of course, when it meets the rocker portion. But the footboard and the headboard are slanted down toward the base or bottom of the cradle, so they have to be splayed out a little bit at the ends, as you can see. And because there's a pin in there, it's adjustable. Even though I've put glue on it, it still has some give to it. And we'll let those dry. I'm just going to stick a couple pins in these just to make sure that they stay put on the ends. They were separating from the wood a little bit where the glue was. All right, now I'm going to cut the cradle rocker portion. And I have two sides. I used a template. I just drew a picture and then flipped it over and made it the same on each side. This particular video took me a little longer to make because it really was a long process. It wasn't a quick build. So it is quite long, longer than usual. I'm going to cut out another piece of the rocker, and I did that. So that's what I came up with. I had to recut one piece. And so I'll sand these. And then these will get attached to the foot and the headboard. And I just have to make sure they're smooth. You know, you could make something like this too for a baby shower gift and put some little gift inside of it. That would be very cute, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have to be as elaborate. You could make it out of cardboard even, or foam core. And just give it a pretty paint job. Put some ribbons on it. Maybe make a little mattress for the inside. Be cute. Or make a little bigger one for a baby doll. That's my dog. He just shook himself out. He's right here with me, so he makes a little bit of noise. I'm sure you don't mind. I like to have him around. Just gonna bend these legs a little bit and make sure they're just straight enough to hook onto the rocker portion. I want them to go straight so that it fits properly. And I'm just going to give these pieces, the headboard and the footboard, a little bit of a sanding. Just to make sure the curves and the decoration can show up. And it'll take the paint better too. There's my dog Roger keeping me company in the kitchen. He has hair all over the place. Okay, I'm just going to continue sanding. It looks a little ragged, but I do end up smoothing it out. It's a little tricky. Sometimes balsa wood is, it's so soft that it just frays. But if you keep working with it and lightly sanding it, eventually you'll get all that stuff off. That's why I use these rasps, because they do seem to work pretty well in accomplishing that. Okay, now I'm just giving these rockers a little bit of a sand. Make sure they're smooth. Now what I should have done is left a piece of that pin sticking out at the bottom, but for some reason it just didn't come to mind. But I glued them and it worked out really well anyway. I just glued them with gel super glue and pushed it in to make a sort of indentation. And it's pretty sturdy, so it turned out okay. But if I ever make these again, I'll make sure that I put a pin in it all the way through. And I'm just going to do the same on this other one. And I'll let that cure. And now I'm going to sand these sides a little bit. Make sure that any pieces of wood that are sticking out are sanded off, and then it's flush. Just cut that little piece off. And that's 600 grit paper that I'm using. To make sure those are really on there. Looks like they're cured already, so I'm going to do a little sanding on these as well, just to make sure everything is flush. And then these will get attached right to the sides. Okay, those line up. Just have to do a little bit of trimming on this piece right here, just to make sure it's even. Oh, it popped apart. I put too much pressure on it. I'll just have to glue it again. Just going to hold it in place while I trim this I'll have to sand that again as well. Now I'm going to make the bottom of the cradle. And I'm just going to use this first piece of wood that I had cut out that was too narrow, and just use it as a guide to make sure I make it the right size this time. So it needs to be about a 1/16 of an inch bigger. So that will be the bottom, and I'll just cut that out. I'll sand it to make sure it's evened out as well. I'm just seeing if it's the right size. Okay. This film has been speeded up, so just in case you're wondering, the whole thing has been speeded up. I tried to get it as short as I could, but I felt like I needed to make a longer video for this. But you can watch as much or as little as you like, and speed through the parts that are, where I'm just pinning or sanding or something. And I'm just going to pin this together to hold it in place. I'm the one who uses the pins to glue my things together. I don't know, I haven't seen anybody else use pins, but it helps me. And you can, the holes, if you paint stuff, get covered, but if you're going to stain, maybe not so much. Although you could put some wood filler in if you were careful, and that wouldn't show up either. Whoops, that just popped right off. Just have to be careful not to stick yourself, which I've done plenty of. That one just doesn't want to stay in there. I don't know why. I'm off out of the camera range for a second there, but I was just sticking a pin in. Okay, there's the bottom. Now you see where it's going. It's all I have to do now is glue those sides on, and then I'll begin the painting process, which it actually took quite a long time, but I sped that up quite a bit because it would just be a 2-hour film then. So I just want to make sure that rocks, and I'm just going to put these on, and I'll glue those in place. And again, I'm just using my favorite wood glue, which is called Wood Weld, or is it Weld Wood? I don't know. I can never remember if it's Weld Wood or Wood Weld. I did end up buying a great big jug of it. It was so much cheaper than buying it by the bottle, and I just refill my bottles because I use so much of this stuff. I use it around the house for stuff too, so. And I'm just going to pin this in place, make sure it's closed up nice and tight, and on both sides, and it'll be very sturdy. And just put a little paint in the cracks there. And this paint shrinks up pretty well, so it doesn't leave drips and globs. And just go around the bottom. This is not a very difficult project. It's just that there's a lot of little pieces involved. But as I said before, you could make this much simpler. And you could modernize it, for a modern dollhouse. Make the colors more modern, bright, that kind of thing. Maybe not put so many little fancy things on it. And concentrate more on the painting. Get some little decals, that kind of thing. By the way, I encourage you to copy what I do. I have no problem whatsoever with people copying my stuff. That's what I'm here for. So if you want to make this and make it exactly the same way, please do. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help people make stuff. And after all, I'm just copying it from what already existed pretty much. And I just want people to enjoy making this kind of thing. And if they really love miniatures, help to improve their houses or their little miniature properties. So please do feel free to copy. And besides, people think of things very similarly. It's not like when you see somebody who does something similar that, they're stealing your stuff. We shouldn't have that attitude because people do think things similarly, and you can't be the only one who makes things like this. You know what I'm saying? I just put that little baby in there. That's the newborn you just saw pop in there. So anyway, I pulled the pins out, it was dry, and now I'm going to put the first coat of paint on, which is very different than what you saw in the original picture. I'm actually painting the inside blue. I saw a couple of cradles that had this kind of blue inside from the same time period, and I really liked it. I thought it added a lot of contrast, so I'm painting it. This is called Pool Blue, and it's that same paint that I always use, the very inexpensive stuff. For some reason, the name just slips my mind right now. It's by Plaid. It's by that same company, but it's the less expensive, and it's a matte finish. But I really like this paint. It works really well. It gives good coverage, dries evenly. Just get it on Amazon. And it's a nice color. I really like this color. And you do see this color on the insides of cupboards in colonial American furniture quite often. Apple barrel, that's it. It's apple barrel paint. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a little bit of beige to it and go over it again just to give it a little more of an antique finish. I really do like the original color, but I thought, well, just as I was doing it, maybe I'll make it, just dull it down a little bit and repaint it. So I did change my mind. But I didn't change it that much. I just wanted to antique it up a little bit. You see, it's not changed that much, so I often do that. I change my mind midstream and then, go in a different direction. But this is not such a different direction. It's just a slightly different color. But I think it does look a little bit better. Okay, that's it. Khaki, that was the color, not beige. Beige was the color I put in the blue, but this khaki color is going on the whole outside. And I'm going to keep that the same. Now I'll give it a couple coats. So the whole outside will be khaki, and this is very similar to the color of the original for the outside. So the painting of this, though, was took quite a while because well, you'll see as we go along, I did quite a few things to it. I used a number of different paints on the outside, and then I actually took Inktense pencils and then some watercolor pencils and did the whole design, the floral design and arabesques on the outside with that. But we'll get there. Eventually, we will get there. I promise. And it's apple barrel paint again. I'm just going to go around and do the edges. And then I ended up sanding it. I didn't include the sanding in this a couple times between layers. But I thought, well, you didn't have to see all that. And now I'm going to paint some of the accents. And this is a burnt sienna. And that's also, I think that's folk art paint, but that's also by the Plaid Company. It's just a little bit better paint. Well, I don't know if it's actually better, but it is more expensive, slightly. But they do have a nice burnt sienna color, so I decided to use that. And I'll touch all this up at the end as well. It's a nice rich color. I like this burnt sienna by Folk Art. This is just a little flat head brush. It's actually from the dollar store, but it's a nice little brush. It was just the right size for doing this, and it has a nice flat end to it, so you can get into the top of it and paint that too, where it's real slim, like what I'm doing right now. I'm not all that concerned about the bottom, but I'll neaten it up as much as possible. I'm just painting along the edge. And I'll have to touch that up too a little bit at the end. Okay, those sides are painted. Now the touch up with that same khaki color. I'm just touching up the blue on the inside so that it makes a crisper line. Usually I don't include all this touch-up stuff, but I thought I would this time because I haven't shown before how many times I touch things up. So you can skip that part if you would like. Some of it didn't even end up in the camera, unfortunately. But I do try to stay in the camera. I'm getting better. And now I'm going to get some black here. In the original Cradle, it had some black accents on it, so I'm going to add those. And this is just matte flat apple barrel paint, black flat paint. Matte, I guess is what they call it now. Sometimes the house paints will be called flat. But it's the same, matte or flat, same thing. And I'll have to touch that up too afterwards. The top gets these black accents, and then there'll be some black painted on the part that meets the cradle rocker part, cradle to the rocker. See, it's getting there. It will all get pulled together with the design. It seems a little disjointed right now, even to my own eye, but I know where it's going, so. That's one of the things about design, is you have to have a goal in mind and work toward the end goal. Okay, make sure they're all painted all the way around. Whoops. You'll be glad to know that that mat that I have that I'm working on, I'm going to turn it over because the other side hasn't been used yet. So I'll have a fresh one for a while. Next video, you'll see a clean mat for the first couple of frames only. I always kind of wonder about how people work so neatly. You know, you'll see their mat is pristine, clean, and everything. Their fingernails, there's no paint on their hands. You know, they don't have a hangnail even. And you know, I admire that, but that's just not what's going to happen with me. So I just work, and then when I need to make a change with something underneath, then I will. But I'm here to get a job done. So, but I do appreciate their neatness, and It makes me wonder how much hard they have to work at something in order to keep things that neat and clean. But that's just not my cup of tea. I work the way real people work in real time. It's no criticism, believe me. Okay, now I laid down the design in a pencil first, but you didn't see me do that. I just made a quick sketch based on what was on the image. And now I'm using watercolor pencils and Inktense pencils, which are also water soluble. They're a little bit better pencil, but I just didn't have all the colors. So I'm dipping these in water as I work. Just a little bit of water on the end. You have to be careful not to put too much water because it will just smear all over the place. And I'm making the arabesques, the squiggles, and the flowers, and the vines. And I'm working in one color at a time. So I'm putting in this sort of burnt sienna color first that appears in the image. Let me give that picture up for you. So this is what I'm going after. You can see the black on the legs that meet the rocker, the top part, and then there's that design. So that's what I'm going after here. But it's not exact, and I painted the inside blue, which is different. What I'm doing here is, as I said before, I'm just getting in there and putting one color in at a time. And of course I speeded this up a little bit more. And I'm drawing in the main color, which is that sort of burnt sienna color. And I'm doing it with a darker pencil now, the darker Inktense pencil. And just going back and forth with lighter variations of that same color. And then the blue. It's very much like the blue on the inside of the cradle that ties that in. And I'll keep going with that, and then there'll be a darker version of that as well. And I have to keep sharpening the pencil as well. It's really important to keep the pencils very sharp. And this is kind of like painting because the pencil is wet. And it's like painting, except you're doing it with a pencil. That's another reason why it's important to use a matte finish. It would be very difficult to try to get this to stick on something that was satin, or a gloss would be kind of impossible. Now I'm doing a little darker pencil to bring out the leaves and some of the shading on it. But it's still the same hue, it's just darker. It's a darker tone. And I'll just keep doing that, going around. So you see the blue tying it in. And I use a little bit of black and dark brown as well to bring out some of the accents. And some pink here and there. It's actually more of a peach color. And black again to bring out more accents. Very little black, but just enough to dot on the dark edges that I've put on with the other colors to bring it out. I tried to enlarge this a little bit so you could see it better. Just where I dot it with color. And enhancing it again with the black. Again, you have to be very careful with black. If you can overdo it very quickly and sort of ruin the look. But if you just use it judiciously, it can really enhance the color. So now I'm going to go along that bar because that gets a design as well. I'm just using that pink color first. And I'm going in again with a little bit of very dark brown. No, this one is actually black as well. And making some petals. And then taking that blue again and making some chevrons and some dots on both sides to kind of mimic leaves. And now that that part's dry, I can go in and just mark off what I want to accent. And darker blue underneath and on the underneath each leaf, just to accent it, to bring it out a little bit. And there's the darker blue again. And now I'm just taking some paint and dotting it here and there. And that's just a kind of peach colored paint. It's kind of light, but it's not white, it's peach. And I'm just going in and accenting around certain places. And I'll do that with the blue as well. That same blue paint. There, see the blue? And just putting it here and there to bring out that blue color. And now I'm going to do the footboard and the headboard. Same type of design. I'm just using the original to pick the design up. It's not exact, but it's in the same spirit. Let's put it that way. I don't try to do it exactly because you could frustrate yourself so badly. So, I want to get it close, but sort of make it my own as well. And that takes some of the stress out of doing this. These kind of feathery looking arabesques and then more darker browns in there to accent it. So I'm using really 3 different shades. And then there's that pink and a darker pink at the top, and then the bottom is that blue again. It's a lighter shade first. And then I go to a darker and increase the darkness as I go, just to accent it. And that's a darker brown yet. Almost looks red, but it's actually a form of brown. And this is paint. This is that peach colored paint. And I'm just going to go through and accent some of the places with that peach color, light peach, and then the blue. So we're getting close to getting done. Only a few more minutes left. And I'm just putting in more accents just to brighten it up. That's the other side. I did both sides the same. And the back, the footboard I have to do. Well, I didn't finish the other side yet, but you won't see that. I cut that part out. One side's complete, and then I'll do the other side later. But now I'm just putting in some of those black accents to tie it all in. And just again, very sparingly putting that black around just to bring out some of those leaves and the flower. And there's the little baby. I actually finished it, and now I'm putting the gold around it. The footboard and the headboard were done similarly. And this is a little bit of gold chrome paint that will go on the rings. Chrome marker. The original had some gold accents on it like this. And I'm just finishing it up like this so that you can see, and then you'll see the finished product in a moment. And I just did each rung of the base that hooks to the rocker portion from the cradle. And again, I put the same design on the other side exactly. And the footboard is basically the same design as the headboard on the outside, just a little smaller. Okay, there it is finished. There's the footboard. There's the side I started with, and get it to focus. There's the headboard. And there's the other side. And there it is, all finished. I hope you like this, and I hope you'll try to make something like this. It was fun to make, and I think it's going to fit into my colonial dollhouse very well for the time period. I did make a mattress and a pillow. I don't show you how to make that. It's just a couple of folded pieces of fine hanky linen, but you'll see that in the final images. And the little baby I'll have to put in swaddling clothes to lay in the crib. And there it is. Tell me what you think. Maybe you'd like to make something like this. It's a lot of fun. Well, thank you for watching, and here are the stills inside of the little staged room. I made the bedding for that 4-poster bed, pencil post bed, and I made that little rug. I'm going to do a tutorial on braided rugs. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.